Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining today. So my name is Brandy Mapes, and I'm a project manager here with the Research Workbench team. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Adrienne, today. She'll be presenting on workspace management tips and tricks. Adrienne, are you ready?
I am. So as Brandy mentioned, we're going to just go over some what we hope are helpful tips and tricks for how to utilize your workspace in the most efficient manner. What we plan on covering today are how to share your workspaces, how to duplicate workspaces and delete workspaces, and then Frances will be taking over and showing you a demonstration on saving and backing up your work and also exporting data. So the first action I want to go over is sharing your workspace. And this is a really useful tool if you want to share workspace with other registered users as part of collaborations. That way you don't have to have duplicate workspaces among all your collaborators. When you share a workspace, you will assign each collaborator a role. There's the role of a reader. This is someone who can see the workspace but cannot edit, delete, or share the workspace. There's a writer who can see and edit the workspace. And then there's an owner who can see, edit, delete, and add collaborators to the workspace. Whoever creates the workspace will be labeled the creator, and you will be the one billed for all of the computational work in that shared workspace. So regardless of which role or which user you share it with, the work they do, the creator of the account will be the one billed. And unfortunately, you can't pull the credits or split billing for a shared workspace, so that's just something to kind of be aware of. We do have a small bug right now that's being addressed that's currently related to workspace privileges and roles of the assigned collaborators, but what you see in this presentation is accurate and it will be reflected very soon once this bug is resolved, but it won't impede your ability to work or share a workspace. But I just wanted to mention that in case you do see something in the workbench that doesn't match up exactly. So to share a workspace, you will go to your workspace landing page, and then you will go over to where you see the three small little snowman dots on the far right screen. When you click that under Workspace Actions, you'll click Share. The first step when you share your workspace is you'll find a collaborator. And this, again, has to be another registered user within our workbench. And you will type their name. If they're registered, their name will pop up. So in this instance, I'm adding Brandy to my workspace. The title of my workspace is called Example. And you click the Add button. And then you will have an option for assigning the role. You can assign this person as a reader, a writer, or another owner. And then once you select the role, you will click Save. And you can add multiple collaborators to a workspace. So next I'll go over duplicating a workspace. And this is a really useful tool if you want to retain the data within the workspace and use it for a different project, especially if you want to kind of play around with the coding. That way you can save it and not have to worry about breaking codes and not being able to fix it. So this is a really good one if you're wanting to just kind of change some of the coding around, or if you just want to use it in a different project. So when you need to also duplicate it if you want to run a notebook workspace, if you want to run a notebook in a workspace. But you have the role of reader. So if you look at our featured workspaces, you'll be automatically assigned the role of reader. If you did want to use some of that code in the notebook, you can duplicate the workspace and then use that notebook. And when you duplicated a workspace, you will also need to revise the original description so that it reflects the purpose of the new project. So again, you'll go to the workspace landing page. You will go again to the little three snowman dots on the far right, and under Workspace Actions, you'll click Duplicate. And then like you did when you created your first workspace, you will fill out this workspace description again. And this is where you will revise the description to match the new project. And then you will click Duplicate Workspace, and then you'll want to then rename it. And then you can also duplicate notebooks, and this allows you to edit, as I mentioned before, when you duplicate the workspace, it will allow you to edit the code in the same space without altering the original code. And to do that, you will go, when you create a new notebook, you'll click on Duplicate, and then you will see the duplicate of, in this instance, it was Test Notebook pop up. And you'll want to also rename that. So for next, deleting a workspace. You can delete any inactive workspaces, and that just helps reduce clutter and makes it a little easier to navigate your workbench. One thing we want to address is this is a permanent action and it cannot be undone. We've had a few people who have accidentally deleted workspaces. So this is just something to be very careful about. You do get a warning sign, but just know that it is a permanent action. If you have a shared workspace and you delete it, it will be deleted out of the collaborators workbench as well. So that's also something to keep in mind. And to delete a workspace, again, you will go to the same place you were previously under Workspace Actions. Then when you click Delete Workspace, you will see this warning pop up just again to remind you that it will be permanently deleted. And now I'm going to pass this over to Francis. He's going to go over saving and backing up your work and exporting.
And just really quick, so this is Brandy, about that deletion feature, I do just want to clarify. So the issue is just bringing it back online. If you happen to delete your work and you catch it right away, please do email us at support@Research All of Us. There is a small recovery window where we can try to bring that back online for you. It's usually a 24-hour window. So if you catch it immediately, let us know. If it's outside of that recovery window, it's really hard for us to try to find that for you.
All right. As Adrian mentioned a little earlier, so there are people who accidentally deleted their workspace or their notebook, and that's something we cannot do anything anymore unless you catch that 24-hour window. So today I want to go a little bit and do a live demo on how to save or back up your work. That means saving your data, your graph, or your workbook, how to retrieve them, how to download your graph or data, and how to do all of this without writing a single line of code. And we're gonna do that by demonstrating the use of code snippets. Code snippets are little snippet of codes that we wrote so that to help you guys do some of those mundane tasks, but they are frequently codes that people need. So we wrote them in the code snippets and you just execute them. You change a few things in there and you execute them and you will do one simple task that you want. So today in particular, we are going to focus on the All of Us cloud storage snippets. This is basically how you interact with the Google bucket, where you can save permanently like your data, your workbook, or basically your work. So let's get started. Because we are talking about a little best practice. So one of the first best practices is to kind of use this. I'm going to demonstrate in Python, but things are similar in R. And I will talk at any differences whenever, if there are any between Python and R. And the first thing is to always use, it's a best practice to use this environment variable, because this, instead of writing the name of the name of the data, if you do this, if we update so for instance, we update the data set every year whenever we do an update, and then you don't have to change your code, but you just need to rerun from the beginning and you can have everything running again and you can have everything updated. But if you write the name of the data set, let's say you write the name of, which is our 2019 Q4R3, for instance, and if this changes, and then you have to change that in every places. So to avoid that, it's better to always use this environment variable. So that's that. All right, so let's start with the saving the data. So there are a few instances where you want to save the data. Maybe, for instance, it's very time consuming to run the query, so you don't want to rerun it. Or it was a very time consuming to do the cleaning part of your data, so you don't want to run it. So you want to save your intermediate or final data. And as I said, because we're going to use the code snippets, so to do that, in order for you to save permanently the data, you have to save it in the workspace bucket. And to interact with it, you can use the code snippets. So basically the steps are, you go to the code snippets, you locate the cloud storage snippets. First, you run the setup. This will import all the packages necessary to run the snippets. And then after that, you just locate what you want to do. So for instance, here we want to set data. So let's say we have this query, and this is not time consuming, but for the sake for the purpose of this, let's just assume that this was so time consuming. I don't want to repeat this, and I want to save this age data frame. This is my data right now in the bucket. So as they say, so the first step is we go into snippets, we locate our cloud storage snippets, which is here, and first we run setup. So we click on setup. Let me put it down. So we go snippets, cloud storage, and setup. Then we run. And then the next step was copy file tool from Workspace bucket, which is in the snippet again. So we go here, cloud storage snippet, copy file tool from bucket, and copy data to Workspace bucket. And you will have this. Now, when you have this, you just need to change two things. Change this data frame, because this has to be your data frame, and change the name that you want your data frame to, you want to name your file when it's saved in the bucket. So the name of our data frame or data is age. So we want to change this as age. And let's say we want to name it as age test. And that's it, all you have to do, and then you can run. To run a cell, you can put the cursor in the cell and hit run, or you can just do Control and Enter. And should be running. So there we go, successfully uploaded in the bucket. I will pause a little bit to see if there is any question. But that's how you save your data in the bucket. I'm going to show you where that lives and how to see that and how to retrieve that now. That's the next step. Is there any? Okay, so I feel we can keep on going. All right, so let's say sometime now, later, tomorrow, we're tomorrow now, and oh, we want to work back again on this age thing, but this age, it took some time to query. So we don't want to rerun the query itself, but we know that we saved it in the bucket. And so how to retrieve that data from the bucket? So basically you have, the steps is similar. You use the code snippets, but first you want to locate what the name of what the file name is first in the bucket. And then that's what you want to change again in the snippet. So in here, the steps are again, run setup, list the objects in the bucket so that you can locate the file name, and then run the copy file from Workspace bucket by changing the file name in here, as I'm going to show you, with the file name that you want. All right, so first let's run setup. So setup is always, it's in cloud storage snippets. Whenever we want to work with the bucket, we run setup. And then we say, because we want to list, so now we want to list the objects in Workspace bucket. So we click on it, and then it outputs this, and we run it. And this runs everything that's in your bucket. So basically, as you can see, we have our data. Within the data, we have our htest.csv. That's the file we want to look at. These are all the notebooks that you have in there. Don't touch this. If you touch something in here, and then if you say you delete it accidentally, then it's deleted forever. So you cannot, less 24-hour window. But that's why we put this in the data, so that we don't touch anything in the notebooks. We just touching things in the data. So now that we know that we located the htest is our file name, so we want to retrieve that. So again, so now the step is then we go upload storage snippet, copy file tool from bucket. Now we copy file from Workspace bucket. And the only thing that we change in here is the name is htest, so we want to copy that. And instead of having this, we change this and we run it. And we should be having our data frame back again. There you go. So our htest is inside a data frame called my data frame. You can change this if you want to, but for a name purpose, we just name it my data frame. So now the age, instead of running the query again, now you have your data frame back by just uploading data from the bucket that you saved earlier. I'll stop a little bit again to see if anyone has any question, because the next step now is after that, I'm going to show you how to export or download your data or your graph. So if you have any question, anything that's not clear so far. Okay, so, all right. So now sometimes we might want to export data, or we might want to download export graph because we want to put these in our papers and something. But something that you need to be mindful of is first you have to respect the download policy. We have a very download policy, mainly, especially it's about the count, that you need to run the count less than 20 to 20. So you have to respect the download policy, make sure that you don't have any identifiable information in there. So as long as you respect those, and then you can proceed and you can export graph or your data. The steps for this is in two things. So first of all, you have to save locally in the workbench, and then you just do a few clicks and download. So let's say we want to save my data frame and we want to export my data frame because we needed that. So we need to save it first. So in Python, because I'm running, so let's say we save it to CSV, so we name it age.csv. And this, when we run this, it's saved locally. And where it is, so we go into the menu file and under open, if you click on that, and then we have our age CSV in here. That's how we see it. And then once you have it, you check this, then you download. And that's how you can get your data. And the same thing is true if you want to also export your graph, you have to save it locally. So let's say we graph the age and we have this nice histogram and we want to save it, we want to export it. So the same thing, you have to first save it locally. Once it's saved, you go again into file and open. And once you go in there, you see it. So the name of the file was age.this.png. So we have our age_this.png, and you can check that and download. And you can get your age.this.png locally. So you have yours locally. So now this you can use it in your article when you write papers or anything. So that's how you export your data or you download your data or graphs locally. Pause a little bit again if anyone has any question so far.
Francis, this is Kelsey Mayo. I'm just reading from our chat window. We had one of our researchers submit, how long do data files live in the Workspace bucket? This user's disappeared after just a couple of days. So I believe what might have happened, and Jeannie, please feel free to unmute and ask your question and provide any more detail. And Francis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you use the methods that Francis has described here today, your files should live in your Workspace bucket indefinitely. And this really is the preferred method of storing. If you use other methods, then we do sort of clean up buckets periodically. And I'm happy to let others chime in with more detail there.
Yes, so if you don't save it in the bucket and then after a few days it's going to disappear. For instance, those things that we save locally, things that we see in here, except for the notebooks, everything is going to disappear after a few days. But if you save locally, if you save in the bucket, then it's going to be there unless you yourself delete it. So it's always going to be, it's permanent. So that's why I said permanently. If it's not locally, but it's in the bucket, it's going to be there unless you delete it yourself. So if you save, when we did how to save your data in the bucket, And then you shouldn't worry because it's going to be there. As I said again, unless you delete it. If you delete it, of course, it's going to be deleted, but otherwise, it should be permanent. So anything that's not local is going to be permanent. And thank you, Kelsey, because I couldn't see the chat with this.
Not a problem. And Jeannie, did that answer your question, or do you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to ask us? We're again happy to answer any question or welcome any feedback you have on your experience so far. File size limitation. So Jeannie's follow-up question is whether or not there are any limits to the file size here.
In terms of when you download the data locally, I will let Shimon reply to that answer, because I think so there is our policy that's checking, so I'm not sure whether if you download a lot, whether it's blocked or it's not blocked. So maybe Shimon want to chime in on that.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Shimon Rura, product manager for the Researcher Workbench here. And so the is there any file size limitations? So there may be some practical limitations around what the tool can handle, but there shouldn't be any significant limitation here. It should be no problem to download files, locally in the gigabyte range. I think we could comfortably say. I'm not sure what the exact limitations practically are. And then certainly uploading to a Google Cloud Storage bucket would have no size limitation, but there are costs associated with the upload traffic and with the storage in that bucket. So that will come out of the free credits that you have. We can get you more detail on the exact costs there. But again, for the type of data that you're likely working with from all of us now, I think it's really should not be a concern. When we get to larger genomic data sets in the future, then I think there will be some more care needed to make sure you don't exceed any sort of cost expectations that you might have. But yeah, shouldn't be any issue on that. And then Francis, you brought up the question of whether there's a limit to sort of how much can be transferred. Here we're talking about data probably coming in from the CDR, the BigQuery database that is providing all of the research data, then being stored onto the local disk. That's the disk inside of the virtual machine that is hosting this notebook environment. That's the temporary ephemeral thing that that can be deleted if you go away for a few days. But then once you upload it into Google Cloud Storage, that is all. There shouldn't be any limitations or risks around triggering a warning there. The Google Cloud Storage and the VM, those are all within sort of our sort of secure perimeter, and there wouldn't be any risks around like triggering an alert for excessive data download as long as you stay within that world. There are, of course, limitations on what you can download out of the All of Us system. So, even using the methods that Francis illustrated, you're still bound by the terms of the data use code of conduct. You can't download individual level data. It has to be aggregate level data in accordance with those terms. And Brandy, I think I see has pointed out storage costs in the chat. So it's 2.6 cents per gigabyte per month. So, if you're storing a few gigabytes of data, you would be well within the comfortable $300 free credit limit for many, many months. Thank you for the question.
Does anyone still have any other question with what we've done so far? Okay, so let's go to the last step. So last step is saving basically the notebook. Here it's kind of weird. We were trying to build a tool that it's like versioning, if people know versioning, but it's not really versioning. But basically, you want to save some part of you want to save your notebook just in case because you're going to collaborate with other people. They might be editing and you might not remember anymore what you did. So it's better to save those, and we created a tool that allows you to do that. Basically, what it does, it saves when it was saved, and you can write some comments to describe a little bit what's in there so that you know and you're aware whenever you want to pull it out. And it's not like a duplicate because it's gonna stay in the bucket. So it's like a permanent saving of your notebooks. So basically, it's always with code snippets. It's within the class storage snippet. So let's say, for instance, here, let's save everything. So remember, you need to save. So you can press Control S and you save, and go within snippets, cloud storage snippets always, and interact with HTML snapshots with the workspace bucket and interact with HTML snapshots. And you will have this. And if you run it, it's going to display a beautiful UI that lets you interact. And what we have basically here is 3 things. So let's wait a little bit. So basically what we're gonna have in here is going to be 3 things. And come on. There you go. So this nice beautiful UI. So we have 3 tabs in here. And the create allows you to save the workspace by, as I said, you choose the workspace, you choose the notebook that you want to save, or at least you want to have a version saved. It's not really a version, but like a snapshot. And then your comments so that it makes you pretty clear what's in there. And if you want, you can view one of, like, let's say you want to check what's in one of them, but in view all, you want to check what's, and I'll show you what's in all of this, but these 2 allows you to view the notebooks that you saved. So let's say we want to save this. And the cool thing about this is kind of like, you can choose the other workspace, not even this one, because right now we are working within tutorials, but you can choose any other workspace. So here's all the workspaces that I have. But since we are working on tutorials, so I'm going to locate tutorials. And then we locate which notebooks I want to save. So within tutorials, I have all of these notebooks, and we want to save the office hours saving here. And let's say we want to comment, our comment is right now, let's say first save in, and we submit that. And it's saving. A tip to know whether something is still working or it's done. So 2 things. So either in here, if you have, if here or here, if this one, so if I'll show you later, but this one is gray if it's still running, and now it's like this whenever it's not running anymore. So now it's done. So for instance, so here we saved this version of a notebook. So we can see, for instance, what it looks like. So we can go into view 1. And again, so here you can just follow what's the workspace. So the workspace is tutorials. So I'm going to look at that. And here it's showing already. So here you can see, you might now like, oh, I saved it today. So I choose the date, and then this was the time, and choose this file, so automatic. So if you say view the comment, and you can see what are the comments related to that. And say it was first saving. Okay, so if you want to see what it looks like, you can choose to hit view the HTML snapshot, because let's say, oh, that's what I needed. And it's going to show you here, oh, this is what my things look like. Let's demonstrate. Let's say that we did something in here. Let's say we erased something. We erased this. So again, as always, you need to control save, and it should be auto saved in here. And you go back and let's save again. So tutorials, and let's do tutorials, office hour savings. So now let's say we say our command is remove graph saving, because we removed that, and we can submit it. So here it's still running because it's great. And then you can see in here on the right top screen, now it's turned, so now it's finished. When it's finished, we can go under view one and let's see, so tutorials and view comments. So here in view one, you just view in one particular setting, but in view all, we can see all the comments related to that because there might be multiple settings of these notebooks. So if you see it, then we can see view all, and let's wait. So there are 2 comments. And this will allow, so it says, so the first setting was done on 2020-09-04, that was our comment. And the time was this, and the other setting, remove graph setting, was this. So let's say I remember, okay, somebody changed, but I remember that I saved my first setting was this. So I just need to go and locate this. So I go into view one, so 2020-09-04, and the time is this. So I go into view one, tutorials. So this is 20, and this one, it's going to be this. So I can say, what is the comment to see whether that's what I was looking for. Yes, first setting, so I can go and check now. So what's different about this? And I can see in here, okay, so what did I do in the graph? So in the graph, oh, I have this. So I can copy this, Control S, and I go, I have that, I don't have it anymore, so I put it back over here, so I have it back again. So that's how you can kind of like back up your notebook so that you are able to see what you did before and in case somebody else changed things. And I will pause a little bit just to see if there are any questions related to that. Thanks to the Workbench team and product team to create this nice UI. It's really good. It's great. It helps us a lot trying to save our notebooks and versioning, kind of versioning.
Thank you, Francis, for doing the demo. You know, I'd love to hear more from the folks on the call. Has this been helpful to you? Obviously, we welcome any questions you have on any of the things covered today or any related topics. Also, you know, do you have any suggestions for us on how we can improve your experience in the Workbench or feedback that you have for us on any of the things that we've discussed today about workspace management? Ideally, we want to make this as easy as possible for everybody to collaborate with your teams and do your research projects successfully, feeling comfortable, you know, that your work can be saved and you have a means to sort of do this type of backup. Okay, so I believe we have a question that says, are all of the snippets and features available?
So I see we have a question from Tamara about our code snippets. Yes, we have a catalog of code snippets available for both R and Python, and you can actually find that in our user support section of the Workbench. So when you log in and scroll over that left-hand side to our navigation bar, the user support, you can scroll in and find that there. And I'll also send the links in the chat.
Thanks. I'll just unmute myself. I've used the snippets and I've seen that they are there. I'm an R user, but I noticed that there are not a huge number of them. Like there are snippets for you doing measurement, but not physical measurements, but not for EHR data, that kind of thing. So interested in hearing more about development of new features that may be coming.
Tamara, before we go there, so let me answer one thing. So everything, all of those snippets are available in both Python and R, except this last one. This one is only available in Python. And the reason is because behind there are lots of things that it does. But let's say that you are, thank you for the question because I forgot about that. And that is one of the differences between Python and R. But let's say you're just mainly working with R, and it's fine even if you work with R. But so in order for you just to run this, so basically what you need to do is you need just to create another notebook in Python, even if that notebook doesn't do anything, but just for the purpose of that. So in order for you to run that, so let's say this is just for saving, so you create it in Python, and that's all you need to do, and run that snippet because it's only available in Python, so you have to do that. but then once you're in there, it should have. I mean, once you do this and you run the same thing, you can see all of the even if so the notebooks can be in R and Python, but this saving you have to run this in Python mainly. So that's the only difference so far that you might see that you cannot see this snippets in for R.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you. I will introduce myself. I'm a new member of the CMSO team at All of Us at NIH, and we'll be working on the researcher workbench user experience, and I will have other feedback too eventually, but not for this particular setting. But thank you for demonstrating some of this. It was very useful.
Thank you so much. And to answer your follow-up question about how do we generate our code snippet library, a lot of this allows us to quickly develop useful snippets of code that we see folks need and find helpful. So everything that you see there was to help people work with, as an example, the All of Us specific data types. So, you know, we have many of our researchers coming in the platform are familiar analyzing EHR data, but there are some nuances specific to the All of Us physical measurement data. So we created snippets to help researchers work with some of these All of Us specific data types. We are absolutely 100% would love recommendations on other snippets that folks would like. And you could either submit requests via, as Brandy just posted the catalog, you can submit requests anytime through our help desk. You know, feel free to chime in here if you have some ideas of things that would be useful to you. But we really do envision this as something that we grow with you. So just let us know if either you think a modification to an existing snippet would be helpful, or you'd like to see a snippet become core functionality of the workbench instead of just a snippet. You know, this is a really cool trial space, almost a laboratory for us to be able to quickly give things that make your experience better and hear what works and what we can do better as well.
Thank you.
This is Brian. I have one quick question going back to the whole deletion of data sets and workspace and everything. So if you're the owner or creator and you give somebody access as a reader or being able to edit and those people delete it, would it delete the entire thing for everyone? Or if only I delete it as the owner creator, would it delete for everyone?
The readers and writers, non-owners, should not have the ability to delete the workspace.
Okay, so it's really up to me then. It's like how would a collaborator delete it?
So you could have collaborators who are also owners.
Okay.
So they would have the right to delete it.
Got it.
So be careful about who you make an owner.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. If not questions, any feedback you guys can share with us about your experience using workspaces, saving, exporting, so forth.
Hi, one of the things that I noticed was that all of the demo projects are, again, written in Python. And so even if there was just like a couple examples of like, we translated this to R, this is how you do it similarly, I think that might help boost people into the program who aren't as Python savvy.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, and we can definitely look into that. We do have a few other workspaces, featured ones that are, the notebooks are available in R and Python, so that would be our survey data. And Francis, I believe that's our physical measurement data as well.
Yeah, and I think when I started using the survey data, there was initially some errors in the code that I had to work through. So that may just be a like versioning thing and they need to get like updated, but I had to like specify a variable that wasn't specified in order to get it to run properly.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember what you did, or next time if you stumble upon something like that, if you could send us a quick note, that would be super helpful. We always want to catch those if they do exist.
Yeah, sure thing.
Anyone else? So in addition to feedback on this specific session, we'd also love to know what you guys would like to hear about next. So if there's a topic that would be really helpful for us to plan as a future office hours, please do let us know. You can, speak up now, or if it comes to you later, be sure to email us. We're planning these every other Friday. Right now, we're sort of thinking about it as somewhat thematic, as someone would go through the, the journey of the workbench from start to finish. But if there are other specific topics around, data structure or some of our tools, please let us know. And otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you to our presenters, and we'll see you next time.